This just in to CBS Sports, where Myles Garrett has reportedly no interest in a contract extension with the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland.com reports that Garrett's camp has, quote, slammed the door on any negotiations. Garrett has already requested a trade out of Cleveland, and the team has said they expect Garrett to be back next season. So some conflicting reports there. We got to get to the bottom of it, and to do so, we welcome in our Super Bowl champion, Bryant B-Mac McFadden. And B-Mac, you actually sat down with Myles Garrett at the Super Bowl and had a great conversation with him. You can find that on social media and CBSSports.com. But B-Mac, this seems like it's not a money thing here when it comes to Myles Garrett. He's saying, I don't want to be in Cleveland at all. So maybe a fresh start good for him. But what do you make of this new news with Myles Garrett?
Well, I can tell you this much. He's adamant about not playing for the Cleveland Browns this upcoming season. To your point, yes, I had an opportunity to speak with him in New Orleans, and off camera, I asked him about the trade request. He said it's real. It's legit. You know, he wants to see what's out there for him. And in terms of the Cleveland Browns, organizationally speaking, just from my eyes, there's a lot of dysfunction going on. And Myles Garrett has been too good to that organization. He's done everything you want your star player to do on and off the football field. But it clearly seems like they're going in two different directions. He wants to compete for a sticky Lombardi. Right now, the Cleveland Browns, it's safe to say, Haley, they're in the midst of a rebuild. And Myles Garrett does not want to be a part of a rebuild. He wants to find a way to compete for playoff seeding, championships. And right now, when you look at how their team is orchestrated right now, compared to some of the other teams in the AFC North, it's going to be a long, long year. It's going to be a long, long few years moving forward for the Cleveland Browns. And clearly, Myles Garrett has had enough.
Yeah, and when you look at the numbers, I mean, it shows that he can be a championship difference maker. 40 solo tackles, 14 sacks this season, good for second across the NFL, 3 forced fumbles. I mean, this guy is a game wrecker at any point of a game. B-Mac, I would love for you to just take us inside his perspective here, because you hear the GM, Andrew Berry, saying, we're not budging. Myles Garrett is going to be a Brown this upcoming season. But this is obviously something he's very passionate here. So as a player, how do you navigate these conversations knowing that you want to be somewhere else?
Well, you make it known. The transparency has to be extremely clear. It can't be any speculations or any rumors. You have to make it known that this is what I want to do. And this is a different NFL landscape in what we're watching right now, because players have a little more power. Players have a little more say-so. Jalen Ramsey was verbal about trying to get out of Jacksonville. And guess what? He was traded from Jacksonville to the Rams. That led to him winning a sticky Lombardi. You look at most recently, Tyreek Hill decided that he was done playing with the Kansas City Chiefs. He made it known. And guess what? He was traded from Kansas City to Miami. So when you look at the power that Myles Garrett has when it comes to being more, you know, in control of what can happen, I see him being moved. And the most important thing about this news, of course, we heard this weeks ago before the Super Bowl, and he's doubling down on that statement all again right now, is that he's giving the team notice about what I want to happen. And other teams have an opportunity to try to draw up some type of package before the draft. So this tells me, Haley, that he is serious about this, because we're in the latter part of February. The draft is literally more than a month away. He's letting you know right now, whoever wants me to be a part of their team, start putting together whatever packages you need to put together for me to be able to be moved from the Cleveland Browns to a new organization.
Let me ask you this, because the Cleveland Browns do have that number 2 pick overall. If, for example, they are able to lock up a quarterback or something that makes this Cleveland Browns team maybe a little bit more desirable, is there some wiggle room there for Myles Garrett? Maybe he changes his mind, or this to you says, I don't care who we bring in around me, I want out.
For me personally, I don't know exactly what he's thinking. I'm just giving you my personal opinion,
Sure.
Haley. I think he can care less. It doesn't matter. Unless you go utilize that number 2 pick to go get a Lamar Jackson or a Joe Burrow, someone who has already cemented themselves in the National Football League as a legit playmaker, I think he can care less. I think he's done. His patience is worn out. He wants to be a part of an organization. Throughout Myles Garrett's career, majority-wise, you know, when you look at the playoff hopes, they kind of been done. You know, midway through the season, they had a few successful years. You look at with Joe Flacco, and then of course early on with Baker Mayfield. But outside of that, you know, it's always been about surviving. He wants to get a chance to do what Philadelphia just done. He wants to get a chance to do what the Buffalo Bills just did in competing for an AFC Championship crown and things like that. So I think regardless of what happens with the draft or whatever they're trying to sell him, because I can tell you this much, if it was about money, clearly they would give him whatever he wants financially. Yeah. He doesn't want that. He wants to be moved. It's not about the money. It's not about who they can draft with the number 2 pick. It's about me getting a fresh start with a new team.
And that's what he deserves. I mean, you laid it out perfectly. He has given his heart and his soul to Cleveland, and he's ready for something different. So as we potentially prepare for the split there, obviously Cleveland's going to have some replacements. And when we look at the draft, this year's edge rushing class is fantastic. We know that Abdul Carter will top the list, but also guys like Mason Graham who can step in as well. How do you see some of those guys being a potential fit in Cleveland?
Well, I can tell you this much, Haley, regardless of edge rusher, pass rushers, they got to go get a quarterback.
Yeah.
Since 2010, 27 different quarterbacks have started for the Cleveland Browns organization.
Wow.
27 since 2010. They have no structure, no stability. So even if you lose or move on from Myles Garrett, you got to go get someone who can throw passes. Because when you don't have a quarterback, it feels like you have to go 150 yards to score. Yes, the field is only 100 yards, Haley, but when you don't have a quarterback, it feels like you got to go an extra 50 because it's harder when you don't have a quarterback. And unfortunately for Myles Garrett, throughout his career there in Cleveland, that has kind of been the case with the inability to go find that ideal franchise quarterback. So with or without Myles Garrett, whatever happens, you got to go find a quarterback because clearly their franchise guy is not there in place right now.
I know. I was so hoping that Jameis Winston could work out, if nothing else, for his awesome personality. Our Ryan Wilson does have the Cleveland Browns taking Mason Graham 2nd overall in his latest mock draft. So could be a good fit there. But B-Mac, as we wrap up this conversation, I want to take it back to Myles Garrett. He says he wants to go to a contender. Where do you think the best fit is for him to make those dreams come true?
Wow. Great question. Quite a few contenders. Buffalo. If I'm Brandon Beane, the general manager, I make this call right now. And one thing I know about Brandon Beane, since becoming the GM for the Bills in 2018, he's traded the 1st round pick, either moved up in the draft or moved out back in the draft 5 times. So he doesn't mind making some movement happen in terms of a 1st round pick. If I'm Buffalo, I go get it. You got to go find guys who can go hunt Pat Mahomes, who can go hunt Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Myles Garrett has hunted those said players. So if I'm Brandon Beane right now, while I'm at Indy, hey, Joe Barry, what we got to do? What has to happen? What do you need? Secondly, of course, Philadelphia. Howard Roseman has done a masterful job in making things like this happen. Of course, they potentially could lose their star pass rusher in Josh Sweat. Hey, if you lose Josh Sweat and you bring in Myles Garrett, Philly Nation would definitely love that. And then lastly, for me, there's quite a few teams that could utilize Myles Garrett. But since I'm on with my girl, Haley, we got a good chemistry. I had an opportunity to talk with Micah Parsons in New Orleans, and I asked him about Myles Garrett. Micah basically said he knows for sure Myles Garrett will love to have that star on his helmet.
I mean,
and he also stated that he would be willing to take less because we know Michael Parsons is on the cusp of getting a new contract. He would be willing to take less if he knew Myles Garrett will be playing opposite of him. So if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, you got to go ahead and try to roll the dice as well. Jera, Stephen Jones, everyone, all parties involved. You need to go ahead and figure out what type of package it would take to go get a guy like Myles Garrett. Like I said, there's quite a few other teams that I could throw in there, but those are the 3 top teams for me: Buffalo, Philadelphia, and the Dallas Cowboys. And of course, I'm sorry, the Commanders as well.
Yeah.
So if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you do not want Myles Garrett to go to Philly or Washington.
No.
So that should definitely push you to go ahead and make something happen to go get a player like Myles Garrett, because Micah said if we got Myles Garrett, we got a Super Bowl type defense right now. That's what he stated. And I don't disagree.
Do me a favor, B-Mac, and look straight into your camera and give a message to Jerry Jones to make this happen for me.
Hey, Jerry, listen, it's been a long time since you had an opportunity to legit hold a sticky Lombardi. Every year you keep telling us you're all in. Every year. But your words does not match your actions. You have to show us. Go out and make it happen. You got oil money, you got real estate money, you got yacht money. I know you got Myles Garrett money. All you got to do is just put together a package. But I can tell you this much. If you do this for the Cowboy fans, every seat in the building will be filled. Every Cowboy fan in America will be buying nothing but merchandise. Everyone will be fired up. Find a way to get it done, Jerry, because I know you want to have an opportunity to try to compete for a sticky Lombardi one more time. One more time. And if you can go get a guy like Myles Garrett, no question, he will get you closer to achieving that goal.
I'm going to clip this and I'm going to send it over to Jerry ASAP so that we can get this in the work. We miss Derrick Henry. We're not missing out on Myles Garrett.